Greetings and salutations, YouTube. We are back here again doing another nerd report, and we got a very interesting story that has popped up. Kind of don't like to do a story about Elon, but the man is like a parasite. He burrows in and festers. He festers. But I want to say this: the man is basically becoming the new kid on the block. So with that being said, hit subscribe on the channel, hit like on the story, and then also stay for the story. So this is coming from PC Mag. Elon Musk making Starlink a global carrier after EchoStar deal. So I've done a couple stories already talking about the deal. Starlink has finally gotten its hands on some spectrum in the United States. We're not talking about some shabby amount of spectrum either. Nice sizable chunk to get their global business off the ground. And somebody stuck a mic in front of Elon's face and he starts being Elon all of a sudden. So within this side of this story, if you want to, I'm gonna leave the what is it called? The description. I'm gonna leave this in the description below. Sorry, brain fart. But I'm gonna leave this in the bottom of the description below, linking this article so you can read it and watch the podcast that he goes on. I've never heard of the podcast, but I did go back and look at this. Him being Elon, being boisterous, trying to be elusive. He says some controversial stuff that kind of is meant to play misdirection with you. But for real, he's actually thinking about this because Starlink needs another viable business model to work under. So here in America, it missed this opportunity if it wasn't for the fact that the federal government had already started investing in more fiber being laid in rural America. If America did not start investing in fiber going towards more rural American people, Starlink would have been the most viable option for a lot of people, hands down. So Elon shopping around trying to find somewhere else that he can use these satellites for, pops up and realizes that, we could do direct to cell. Well, where can you fester at and finally burrow into? What company will let you burrow into you, or let them burrow into to finally grow into the alien busting out of their chest? Turn and look at T-Mobile. So their first partnership in this direct to cell was T-Mobile. Now, it seems harmless enough, but then you realize that this was kind of what they wanted to go into in the first place. Because as soon as they started partnering with T-Mobile, they became hyper aggressive, like overly aggressive, going after EchoStar. Because they smelt blood in the water. If you look at one of my thumbnails, I even use sharks. But they were the most aggressive out of any company going directly after EchoStar, trying to get the FCC put on them. They forced them to start giving up on this whole being the fourth national carrier. So with that being said, now they have a chance to kind of fester inside of T-Mobile for a while. They get all the data to find out how well the satellite from space is going to work, and then they end up buying more spectrum. So now they become their own holder of their own spectrum. The way that it was set up before was T-Mobile donated spectrum to Starlink for them to use. Now they have their own. And the funny thing is their own marries directly up with T-Mobile's spectrum that they're letting them play around with. So we're talking about even more bandwidth across America. But that's not where it's going to end. So now Starlink needs to go global. And that's one of the reasons why somebody asked him in this podcast about Verizon. Number one, that's not going to happen. That Verizon is counterintuitive to SpaceX and Elon's global domination. Verizon is too territorial with America. He's gonna be looking more global. And one of the things that I challenge everybody to do is look at your cell phone basically, and think of your cell phone working anywhere in the world. I'm a Star Trek fan. We're talking about, you got the Star Trek pin that's pinned to your chest. You just press that and boom, like, hey, let me talk to such and such. And then they connect you. You're able to contact anybody, anywhere, no matter where you are on the planet. That's Starlink. That's futuristic stuff from Star Trek. So that is, if you become the basis and backbone for global communications, you're already seeing it now where they are providing internet services on the battlefield. They're providing internet services in the middle of nowhere. They're providing internet services to whoever and anywhere, even in like some remote places in South America, South Africa, different other very hard to reach places. So imagine cell phone services being offered in the same exact spots. So these are kind of the forward thinking. I hate to say it. I hate to say it. I'm not a big Elon fan. Really, I'm not. But the problem is he's like the guy that comes in and buys up the bar. You don't like the guy, but he spent a lot of money. So you go, let him spend his money. But then he ends up buying your bar because he realized how popular you are. That's kind of how I see Elon going to end up doing when it comes to the global communications. It's slow. It's going to be slow and steady. Starlink is the first step. They can deploy their own satellites. That's something that I don't think a lot of people quite understand. Being able to deploy your own hardware is huge in comparison to having to wait for somebody else to do it for you. And now you're talking about providing cellular communication services global. Now you become a global carrier without having to really do a whole lot of heavy lifting. You don't have to buy a Verizon, which is stupid. You don't have to buy a Verizon or a T-Mobile or AT&T. All you got to do is partner with them and then form your own MVNO, which, case in point, is amazing how this deal with EchoStar has happened and EchoStar getting, access to Starlink. This is probably them even doing more testing to check and see if they can become a more global carrier. We're talking about being able to, hop on a train, on a plane, cross into Canada, go into Mexico, get on a cruise ship and still be able to use your phone, still be able to call. Cruise ships are a big Starlink customer. Planes are going to become a bigger Starlink customer. These entities where it's outside the purview of a T-Mobile, where they try to do these partnerships, but really it's hard to do. T-Mobile terrestrial is partners up with Delta, but they have to be within the borders of America for it to work. What happens when you go to Britain? What happens when you go to New Zealand? What happens when you go to Africa? You don't have those partnerships anymore. So Starlink being a global carrier is a huge deal, bringing forth the Star Trek quote unquote future to what he's trying to do. Like I said, I don't like the fact that he's doing this because he basically set T-Mobile up to fester inside their chest, and he's going to bust out and leave a gaping hole in them because they get all the data, find out if it works or not, and then they're going to move on. So one of the things is what's the more practical path? That's the path that I have just given. The most practical path is what I've given is slow and steady. What you're going to probably see from reporting from me and maybe other people on YouTube or even in the news, you're going to start seeing Starlink buying spectrum or even whole companies, if it comes down to it, so they can provide the same service globally. So whatever companies or cellular carriers that has spectrum within the 2 gigahertz range, with between what T-Mobile has offered, which is like 1.9 to 2.1 gigahertz, any company that has that is going to be targeted directly by Starlink, either trying to buy the spectrum from them or acquire the whole company. Because anything they can do to become a global service provider, that's what they're going to go for. Because it brings in more revenue for Starlink. But one of the things that I find funny about this article is they end up talking about AT&T and saying that why AT&T is not worried. AT&T should be the most worried out of the 3 major carriers here in America, is because they are the ones that's actually on a more downward slide than a Verizon or a T-Mobile. If a lot of people don't really realize this, is AT&T is by far the father of telecommunications in America. Everybody else that's in America that does telecommunications have AT&T's DNA running all through them. It's not direct. It's like handoff of a handoff of a handoff, but they have AT&T's DNA running directly in them. And AT&T is in a very bad position because there are other companies coming up trying to do it better than they are. So what happens when now you have a T-Mobile that is trying to be the low-cost leader? You got Verizon trying to be the more, premium leader. Then you add a Starlink / global service that's going to go after world leaders. World leaders having a 1 cell phone plan and not having to worry about dealing with an AT&T, which is very legacy and not willing to, look for new ways to grow their business, is going to be more attractive to another billionaire CEO who just wants to have one phone number that fits them all. The idea of being able to just open your phone and your phone number just works. I don't have to worry about roaming charges. I don't have to worry about, roaming data. I can only speculate on how bad it is when you go from here to Europe to use data. It's gotten better. It's way better because we now utilize eSIM, but it's still a very bad system overall. But imagine a system that can be provided by Starlink that's a global phone number. That's what I don't think a lot of people quite understand, is it will probably start off as being like, millionaires and billionaires having one phone number, because the only ones that can really afford a Starlink and a yacht, they're going to have 3 or 4 satellites on their yacht and still have internet access. They can whip out their phones, make their phone calls. What happens when you don't want to change your phone number or download a new eSIM? You don't have to. They have the partnerships in different other countries, if not already have a company they've bought over time, and now your phone number just works when you cross into, Istanbul or, into the EU or Switzerland. It just works. And if you're in the middle of Nowheresville, it just works. These things I don't think a lot of people quite really look at. Starlink they had a solution looking for a problem. Especially when America did the bread program and started doing terrestrial fiber to everybody, trying to get fiber to everybody in America. They were really, really, really looking for anywhere they can to stick these satellites to be as important as possible. And now they found it, and they're going to invest heavy into doing this. So I believe that we're looking at the new kid on the block. And the new kid on the block is not going to play the same games as a T-Mobile, a Verizon, a AT&T, and whoever else that wants to play. You got Rogers in Canada. You got, TELUS in New Mexico. You got the Triple E. You got Orange. You have all these different cell companies across the world. But imagine just having one phone number. That's it. That identifies who you are. That's how big this is going to get. But let me know what you think. I'm curious to see where other people's mindset is. Am I too far gone with my speculation? Let me know in the comments below. I'm always cool with people's opinions as long as it's respectful. Always respectful. But let me know what you think. Leave your opinions in the comments below. I'm going to leave the link to the article in the description below. That way that you can go and read it for yourself, see the podcast, and see what everybody else has been talking about, where, quote unquote, Elon says, oh, I could probably buy Verizon. That's not going to happen, people. That's not happening. He will probably go for somebody a little bit more of a softer target. Maybe even double back and go back and grab Boost Mobile as an MVNO just to get his feet wet, or even come back and grab T-Mobile before they start buying up a whole lot of fiber companies. That's the most safer bet than trying to buy a Verizon. That's just my speculation on it. That's my speculation view that I like to give. But let me know what you think. And like, share, and subscribe to the channel. And y'all have a good one.